Hi, let's have a look at Katalon and Traffic Parrot integration and how we can do automated testing of error and hypothetical situations. So we've got this application that we're testing using our Katalon automated tests, the finance application that we're testing, and it's connecting to a market data API. However, we've got this issue that we cannot set up, or it's hard to set up hypothetical and error scenarios in this testing environment. So let me show you this finance application and our automated tests first. So let's have a look at the finance application. Very simple web application. We've got a few tabs in here, and it fetches, makes a request to the backend services, fetches a response, it presents the price it got in the JSON response to the user here. So we've got the Apple stock, we've got the Google stock price, we've got the Amazon stock price. You see different prices, and when we press on Nanomet, we've got a problem because the price is the same as Amazon for some reason. And if we look at the log file of the finance application, what we'll see is that it's just an issue with the backend services. It doesn't have the test data set up, okay? So we'll see that it comes back with this message that says stock not found. So we can already see the problem here, right? So we want to test our Nanomet not existing company stock in our finance application. However, we've got a bug in the application that we've discovered. It shows the Amazon stock, or the last stock that has been shown to the user here, and it doesn't present the errors to the user here, okay? So we should probably go to the developers and ask them to fix it. However, there's more issues on the way because we want to run our Katalon tests here. Katalon grade 2 for test automation. I'm going to run our first test here, and hopefully it will pass because it checks whether the stock price is between 100 and 1,000 and the text is green. Yeah, green. So that test has passed. Everything's okay. Let's see what other test cases the business asked us to deliver. We've got a Google low stock price test is red. So what we're testing in this test is that the stock price should be less than 10 and the text should be red. Let's run the test, and unfortunately it will be not passing. Why is that? Well, it actually fetches the Google stock price, which is around 200 right now. And what this test is supposed to test, that when the price is less than 10, the text is supposed to be red. That's the functionality that's supposed to be implemented. And it actually is implemented. However, it's hard to test it because we cannot set up the test data in this test environment, or it's hard to set up test data in this test environment. So how would you test situations like this? With Traffic Parrot, it will be easy. We'll get to that in a second. We've also got another test, a piece of functionality. We're supposed to verify that if the price is very high, it just gets presented to the user, which is fine, right? Make sure that the prices get presented to the user as they are actually, okay? And again, if we run this test, the price that gets presented to the user is the price from the test environment, which is right now around 200. Unfortunately, this test won't pass, right? Because we can't test large price because we're not able to set up the test environment in the way we want. And we've also got this non-existing Nanomet stock price test, where if we run it, what we'll see is it goes to the Nanomet tab and tries to assert that the price is of a certain range between 1,000 and 10,000. However, it's not because there's a bug in the app, and also the business requested that we have a Nanomet company that isn't a real company. Actually, it doesn't exist, but we're supposed to have it in the test environment. We're having trouble setting this up in the test environment, this test data. So how are we supposed to do our test automation, run these tests every few hours or every hour in a CI/CD build, for example, ensure the quality of our application, the finance application, if most of these tests are actually failing right now? Well, we can go to service simulation. So what is simulation? On the left-hand side, we see a traditional testing infrastructure without Traffic Parrot, or service simulation, where we've got our system under test, for example, a finance application that's connecting to a number of backend and third-party systems like the transaction system, user data systems, and the third-party system. And on the right-hand side, what we see is the testing infrastructure with Traffic Parrot. So we'll get our system under test that's connecting to transaction system simulators, user data system simulators, and analytics system simulators instead of the real services. Okay, so how would that look like in our case, and how can we apply that? What we can do is create those API simulators inside Traffic Parrot by using the recording feature of Traffic Parrot, and there's other ways to create those simulators and mocks in Traffic Parrot, not just by recording. There's you can import, for example, Open API specifications, Swagger specifications with those, etc., etc. There's a number of ways you can create these API simulators. However, in this example, we'll create them by using the recording functionality of Traffic Parrot. And what we can do next is use these API mocks or API simulators. So our market data API and test environment is not going to be used, but for the purpose of running our automated tests, we'll be using the simulators, where the finance application will be connecting to the simulators, not the real market data API. And what we can do then is set up the test data in Traffic Parrot, okay? And I'll show you how to do that as well. So first of all, we'll create an API mock by recording the traffic between the finance application and the market data API. So first of all, we need to point the Traffic Parrot tool at the market data API, and then we need to point the finance application at Traffic Parrot instead of the market data API in order for this proxy for recording to work. Okay, so first of all, let me point the API simulator Traffic Parrot at the market data API, and the way we do that is we copy from the finance application the URL of the real API and put it into Traffic Parrot recorder. So let me open up the properties file of the finance application, copy the real URL of the API, and open up Traffic Parrot. Traffic Parrot is a tool that I've got running here locally, and this is the web user interface for Traffic Parrot. I can go to HTTP record, paste that URL, and we've got right now a recorder that's running locally, and it's proxying all traffic requests and responses to this real API. Okay, so we've got the Traffic Parrot's API simulator pointing at the market data API. Now we need to point finance application at Traffic Parrot. And the way we do that is in the properties file of the finance application again. So instead of telling it to connect to the real API, we tell it to connect to localhost 8081, which is where our recorder is running. So what we've got right now is this setup where the finance application is connecting to the API simulators, which are recording the traffic, and that's and proxying them to the market data API, and the responses are coming back the same way. So if we run our automated tests right now, there should be a recording that's happening. Okay, so let me run one of these tests, the Apple test, and something should be recorded. Okay. And there we go. So the test has passed, no changes here, very good. But what we'll see in Traffic Parrot is this recording. So Traffic Parrot's noticed a request between the finance application and the backend API, and it was a request to /stockquote with a simple Apple, with the symbol Apple, which makes sense, and it was a 200 response, and you see the last price that gets presented to the user is here in this JSON response returned by the backend service. Okay, we can actually open up the finance application now and record the Google response and the Amazon response and the Nanomed response by using the application, and what we'll see in Traffic Parrot, all of those get recorded. We could have run the tests, the automated tests as well. You can do it either way, right? It doesn't matter. It does not matter how you trigger the traffic to the finance application. What matters is the traffic goes through the market data API here, okay? So what we've got right now is in Traffic Parrot, we've got these 4 requests and responses that are recorded. We can stop the recording. And what we can see is the Apple recording that we saw. So symbol equals Apple, the price is 273. Then what we've got is a Google response, we've got a Amazon response, and we've also got the Nano response, the non-existing stock, which says stock not found. So what do we do now? Well, we can start fixing our tests. So the tests are actually fine. They're representing the functionality that is supposed to be in the application. However, the test data in the test environment wasn't there, okay? And the hypothetical and error scenarios were not easy to be for us to set up. However, right now it's under our control. We can set up those scenarios inside Traffic Parrot and easily continue with testing, automated testing with Katalon of our finance application. So first of all, let's confirm that our first test passes. The Apple stock price is displayed and the price is between 100 and 1000. That passes good. Let's see what we can do with this test. So Google low stock price is red. So this, if we go to Google, the text is supposed to be read because the price is less than 10, okay? That's what the test says. However, the price is 193, which is what was recorded from the environment. So what we can do is go to our test data here in Traffic Parrot, and instead of saying it's 193, we can say it's 3.12, for example. Save that, rerun our test, and right now, I believe it should be passing, right? And see, it was red. So the test has passed, the price was less than 10, and the text was red. Amazing. And we can actually confirm it manually here. If we go to Google, we can see the price is now less than 10, and it was very easy to set up this test data inside Traffic Parrot. Okay, so we've got the second test that is passing. Fortunately, that functionality was already implemented inside our application, so the test was passing and all the business requirements are met. We've got the next test or requirement, large Amazon prices displayed. Okay, let's run this test. And it's not passing because the price is supposed to be 1234 blah 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 .99, okay? And the prices, we can check it here, it's 225.94, which is the price that got recorded in the test environment, okay? So what we can do is set the price inside Traffic Parrot for Amazon to this price that the test expects, okay? Rerun the test. So what's going to happen now is we hope this test passes. Unfortunately, it does not pass. Why is that? Well, what we can see here is instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., .99, what we see is 1.23 E9, right? What is this? Well, for some of you might know, this is a typical way for computers or any programs to represent large numbers, such as the one that we've just started using. And by default, many computers or programs will use this notation for large numbers. Unfortunately, we're using business ones for this particular scenario, is for this price to be represented in an identical way to the one that was returned by the backend service, which makes sense. It's actually a price, right? We don't want any abbreviations here or changing the notation. So what we found is we've got a test in our Katalon studio that's supposed to be actually passing, but it's not because there's a bug inside the application. How easy was it to find, right? With simulators simulating this large price, okay? So what we can do is go now to the developers and ask them, hey, can you please fix this issue for us? And we can retest it with our test that we already have in our build. And let's go to the last test, which is the non-existing nanomed stock, right? So we're running this and we see the price is the one that was presented lastly. And what was the issue again? Well, the problem is, and that response got recorded as well. If we look at the nano response, so symbol nano in the request, the response's stock was not found. And this is a made-up company, the Nanomed. What we want is to have this in the test environment for whatever reason, right? This is a very simplistic application, right? This application that we're running here is a very simplistic, but you can imagine many scenarios where this would be a case actually where you want special personas or user personas or company personas that are set up in a test environment for a specific reason and specific test cases. And how would we set up such a company? Well, what we can do is actually just copy one of the other ones, paste it here. Instead of saying 404, which is not found, we say 200, which is success. And what we'll say, this is Nanomed, and symbol is nano. And the price is, we can say the price is like this because it was, I believe, supposed to be between 1,000 and 10,000. Yes. Okay. Save that. Run a test again. And it should be passing now. There we go. So what have we done here? What we've done was we were able to test our finance application in the absence of the test environment by recording the traffic, creating IPA simulators with Traffic Parrot by recording the traffic between the finance application and market data API, and setting up hypothetical and error scenarios so we can continue automating our tests and running our automated tests. Use it in Katalon. So along your test automation journey, you'll find yourself at the beginning of the journey, at the middle of the journey, at the end of your journey, okay? And there's going to be different issues that you'll see or experience during your test automation journey in those stages. If you're starting with your test automation journey and you've got 10 to 20% of your test cases automated, what you'll see is issues like the backend environment being down, API or services not available. And we've got a special video for Katalon users for the backend environment is down scenario, which we'll link below. We've also got issues like slow manual processes in backend or third-party systems that prevent automation. We've got issues like test data changes that break existing automated tests. And we've got test data setup that is required or test data refresh that is required, which we've actually tested or demonstrated in this video. So what happens is, if you're starting your journey with test automation and you experience any of those issues, you already experience a moderate to high return on investment of using Traffic Parrot simulators, okay? So by all means, if you experience any of those issues, start using API simulation and start using Traffic Parrot. There's going to be other issues like setting up hypothetical scenarios and for error testing, like we've discussed also in these videos. Or third-party and API service restrictions, how to investigate test failures. And this is further along your test automation journey, let's say 20 to 80% test automation. And then you'll experience a high to very high return on investment of using Traffic Parrot. It's going to get close to impossible for most use cases to get to 80% of test automation without using API mocks or API simulators, okay? And we've actually, there's been in 2025, the World Quality Report that's mentioned that companies typically stop at 30 to 40% test automation for a lot of these reasons, actually. And the reason is, it's really hard to do test automation if you don't use service simulation or API mocking, like we've just described. And if you want to get to full test automation, it's close to impossible to actually do it without tools like Traffic Parrot. So yeah, if this feels like something you'd like to try for yourself, go ahead to trafficparrot.com/trial.html and download the 14-day trial evaluation. Thank you so much for watching and hopefully speak to you soon. Bye bye.